Okay, welcome everyone. It's delightful to be here with you this evening for BSBI's winter webinar series. My name's Julia Hanmer. I'm Chief Executive of BSBI, and I'm delighted to welcome Yoselin Benitez Alfonso, who's our speaker today. She's Professor in Interdisciplinary Plant Sciences at the University of Leeds, and she'll be talking about her work as founder of the network of the Black in Plant Science, which provides support to UK-based persons of Black heritage studying, working, or engaging in plant science. Yoselin is a UKRI Future Leaders Fellow at the University of Leeds. She's originally from Cuba and studied at the University of La Habana. She completed her PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology at the University of Cordoba in Spain and did postdoctoral placements at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory, New York in the USA, and at the John Innes Centre in Norwich in the UK. Amazing travels. Yoselin's research focuses on investigating the mechanisms regulating intercellular communication in plants using biological, physical, and mathematical approaches. And I'm going to hand over to Yoselin in a minute. But first of all, I want to say to you all, thank you so much for coming. And please, as you think of any questions for Yoselin, we're going to have a question session at the end of the talk. So we'd love you to, as you think of any questions, to put them in the Q&A, and we will then discuss them at the end of the session. So thank you very much, Yoselin, and over to you.
Well, thank you very much for introducing me. This is a pleasure to be here. It's a little bit late for me. I am a mom of a little girl who probably will disturb me at some point, but hopefully not. So yes, I will share my slide and please let me know if there is any issues.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. So yeah, so as I was introduced, I am a UKRI Future Leaders at the University of Leeds. I am also the head of the Plant Science Department at Leeds, and I also founder of the Black in Plant Science Network. And I saw that today we are going to be talking mainly about our work within the plant science, the Black in Plant Science Network, what inspired the work, how it was founded, who belongs to it, and what opportunities there are to engage with the network, but also more broadly, how many opportunities you have to influence the current status quo in relation to diversity in plant science. So I will not say very much about my research, unfortunately, because if not, we would be going over the hour. So, but in these slides already, you can already see what are the ways in which you can connect to the network through email, Instagram. We also have a Twitter website, an email, and a real website for the network. And the aim of the network, as it was introduced, is to connect, celebrate, and cultivate UK-based Black plant scientists. I am not alone into this journey. Thankfully, I am joined by a group of plant scientists that are concerned about the diversity within our topics and about the fact that we are many times the only ones in the room from this ethnicity. And again, we are always collecting thoughts from our network, but also from outside our network, from allies. So if you have the time, please just go into the QR code and please share your thoughts after this seminar. But who am I and what I do? I have actually been introduced very well. I want to also say that a little bit about the BIX project. So where we are, where are we going, and what is the impact that we have made so far in the life of those that belong to the network or that have been able to benefit from the network. I will also say a bit about future opportunities that you have to engage with the network and how these opportunities come to be, what founded them, and how you can access them. So yeah, I was born in this little island over there in Cuba. Very exotic place, but not very good economically. So I studied at the University of La Habana only for 2 years before I actually moved to the University of Cordoba in Spain, where I did my undergrad. I finished my undergrad and also my PhD. There is where I started working in plant science. Actually, my undergrad was in chemistry, it was not in biology. So it was through the love of biochemistry that I engaged with a group that was working in plant science and specifically looking at pathogenesis and in a tree, in olive tree, and their interaction with a fungal pathogen that was actually decimating the olive tree during that time. So from my PhD at the University of Cordoba, I moved to New York, where I did a postdoctoral in Cold Spring Harbor Laboratories. And there I started to become concerned with the ultrastructure of plants. So how this ultrastructural behavior of plants actually achieve the communication between cells. And specifically, I was looking at model plants in this case. And this is because these questions of ultrastructural behavior were very much difficult to assess at that time in crop plants. So from Cold Spring Harbor, I did a second postdoctoral at the Young Innes Center, which is here in Norwich in the UK. Again, I was given an amazing opportunity to be engaged on one of the first proteomic screenings of the channels that I studied, which is Plasmodesmata. And through this experience, I gained many of the resources and the tools that I use still today within my group to advance research on this topic. And from the Young Innes Center, I applied for a lecturer position at the University of Leeds, a research fellow position in 2013, and I am here since then. So we are talking about 13 years of experience, really, of project leader here at the University of Leeds. They must have been treating me well when I am still here. So as I say, my research is mainly concerning communication between plant cells. And specifically, I am looking at channels, intercellular channels that traverse cell walls and that are called plasmodesmata. And through these channels, there is a kind of a collaboration between neighboring cells where actually signals, good and bad signals, are being transported, and thereby long and short responses to these signals can be conserved. So this a video that that is showing here is actually showing an example of this type of signaling pathways. So this is a virus which is infected in this source leaf in yellow. You can see a marker in yellow, and this movement protein of the virus is able to move from this source leaf in which is infected. This is in tobacco, and move intercellularly and through the phloem into the new tissue where it is spread into the new leaf. So this is a beautiful example of communication between plants, between plant cells, but more importantly, is an example of how virus has been so successful in spreading throughout the plant kingdom. They just really cannot be contained. They are just very easily exploiting what the plant does to actually achieve their spreading. And they do that through communication between cells. And this communication in between cells exists because plant needs to achieve this effective communication to actually respond very quickly to changes in the environmental and their developmental conditions. So basically physiological status or any nutritional defects or flooding can lead to changes into this communication, leading to responses in the plant. And this, for such a very sessile organism like plants, is essential. So these plant cells are connected, as I say, by this small channel named plasmodesmata. And through them, there are mobile proteins, RNAs, small molecules such as hormones and viruses that can be transported. And the movements through these plasmodesmata actually is what make cells to actually understand what one cell is doing and to achieve changes also in cell fate. So this molecular transport is really achieved even though plants have very rigid cell walls. I think that I don't have to convince this audience about the difference and the structures of cell walls, but plant cells are surrounded by these cell walls. But if we look very closely using electron microscopy techniques, we can see that these cell walls are interfered by these channels of communication that we name plasmodesmata. We also have studied these channels through atomic force microscopy, actually looking at the structure of the cellulose around the channel. As you probably know, cell walls are made mainly of cellulose. In this case of primary cell walls contain also some hemicelluloses such as xyloglucans, pectins, homogalacturonans, rhamnogalacturonans, and arabinogalactan proteins. And it's all this mesh of components which actually determine the biomechanical properties of the cell wall, but also their capacity to control communications through these channels. So about 4 years ago, I earned a UKRI Future Leaders Fellowship to actually look at the structural biology, the polymer physics, the genetics, and the material science that underpin the plasmodesmata functioning. And this project is still ongoing. The name of the project is PD Wall Mech, and this means PD or plasmodesmata wall mechanics. And we focus very much into the cell wall. Which components have these cell walls to restrict or achieve or benefit the transport through plasmodesmata? How these components interact with each other? And also, can we learn something from this interaction to manipulate crops so that we can manipulate crop responses to environmental conditions and thereby crop resilience? And finally, in another aspect, can we actually use that information to inspire the development of new materials that could be used from cellulosic materials that could be used as sustainable sources or sustainable resources for all the modern commodities that we have today? So this project is very ambitious, as you can imagine, but I have the help of students and postdoctorals that join my lab. And also I collaborate with many people, including people from the Global Food and Environment Institute, the Biostructural Laboratories here at Leeds, the Center for Plant Science, and the Bragg Center for Material Research. So altogether, we are building a picture in which we can use the information on the composition and the structure of cell walls to manipulate transport, to manipulate plant responses to environmental cues, and also to exploit and create and redesign materials that could be done with these components. So this is almost everything that I'm going to say about my research. I'm going to just kind of tell you then how this research actually inspired me to build the Black Implant Science. Through my whole network, through my whole traveling, my whole stay and research, either in Spain, United States or the UK, I have kind of created an ever-growing network that comprises people that are working at Plasmodels Mata, but also people that have actually coincide with me during the time that I have been in Cold Spring Harbor and working, or in the Young Center, and working in completely different topics. I have also made collaborations through the UKRI Future Leaders Fellowship Network. This is an amazing opportunity. If any person in the audience want to apply, this is an amazing opportunity to actually get a network that is interdisciplinary and that is very supportive. And I also had the opportunity to make a huge advance in my career by joining this 100 Black Professors Now initiative that was done by the Women's in Higher Education Network, and that promote women like me that are from the Black ethnicity into achieving higher professorship positions or leadership positions. So one thing that for me has been very clear is the influence and the importance of networks and the importance of networking for my career. Why, you will say? Well, again, maybe this is to a converted audience, but your network amplify your voice and validate your work. For people that are coming from a background that is minoritized, this is really important. It provides a sense of community and belonging, grow your self-confidence, provide mentorship and sponsorship, help you to communicate with different audiences, share ideas, and keep you up to date, open doors for outreach, engagement, and future opportunities, leverage of support and collaborations for a project or a fellowship, provide suitable referees for my papers, my fellowship application, my grant applications, and reviewers. And it's also really important for my personal growth, really expanding my network, expand my circle of contacts. It also expand my capability to actually understand different cultures, different ethnicities, etc. So I have the thought that this might sound very crinky, but I think that is true. Your network is your net worth. Really, it's really, really important, and it has been really important in my career. Now, when you see people like me in academia, you also have to see where we come from. In the UK, the situation is like this. So, despite 6% of the UK population identifying as Black, and this is not counting people that come here through emigration, 8% of the UK science undergraduate identify as Black, but only 2.7% of UK academics are Black. Moreover, only from this 2.7%, 0.7% of UK full professors are Black. And within plant science, this number even is lower, it's a 0.6%. So two professors that we know of are Black here in the UK. So when you see these statistics, you can only wonder about what our students might feel, which come from many different parts in the world. And when we actually look at our students, and this is a study that was done, led by Catherine Hubbard, and that looks at the underrepresentation of Black and Asian students in the UK plant science. So she discovered that actually the numbers are even more worrying. So we have in all science, we have certain percentile here in violet or purple. We can see the numbers of Black students, percentage of Black students. But when we look at biology, this percentage is really, really low at the postgraduate and undergraduate level. But if we look at plant science, specifically those universities that offer plant science, home students that are Black are zero. And this is really worrying. So we have no uh, facilitate or made our discipline in a way that is actually exciting or that recruit a student, home students into plant science. And when do you look at the professorship, then you say, okay, maybe there is just no representation. And indeed, you can feel like this. So being highly visible but isolated, being suffering aggressions, micro and macro aggression, the assumptions that you are always looking of positive discrimination, you are there because you are Black. The workload that increases tremendously, which this is due because of representation. We always want to have a committee, a panel, an interview member from different ethnicity just for representation, but they also damage the person and their career progression as they actually cannot do everything. And the denial of life experiences. All of this also kind of influence in that we are seeing as well a number of Black researchers that just don't continue into research or into professorship or that give up. And this situation actually is really contrasting when we actually look at the diversity innovation paradox. It's demonstrated by many students, by many studies, that diverse teams are more rigorous in interrogating data and that are more innovative. They have been shown that diverse teams actually innovate at higher rate. And this is not something new. It's just you have different viewpoints, and that means that you have more out of the box ideas to contribute, but also many different life experiences which contribute to the innovation pot. Moreover, we have seen in other studies, they have seen that students that attend a diverse campus not only benefit the minoritized students, but also the majority. So white students also benefit not only socially, but also in their future career earnings. We don't know if it's only because you actually understand diverse cultures, diverse point of view, that actually you are able to accommodate that and to reflect that in your career. But that's a fact. In 2023, for example, a best college survey showed that over half of the students reported that they actually would consider transferring if there is no diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative in their university. This is in the US. This is a US study, but very much what many of our students feel. Research also shows that when do you have Black students with same race instructors perform better and are less likely to drop out. And this is because the lack of diversity in reading lists and teaching staff, the stereotyping of culture or ethnicity, the lack of consideration of names are the major factors that they cite as disengaging students of the global majority, leading to basically the motivation and lack of success, and therefore seeing that pipeline that really kind of reduce the numbers that we see in our research. So we decided to take some initiative in that direction, in the direction of supporting our community. And the vision was through this Black in Plant Science network to change the status quo, basically creating resources and opportunities to recruit, nurture, connect, and retain UK-based Black plant scientists. So this, as I say, it was not only myself. We are 8 in the committee, but many people also belong to the network. We have Nicola Patron is like my co-chair. So she's at the University of Cambridge. Her research is equally amazing. and she is an associate professor in this university. We have Stephen Spoyle, who is professor at the University of Edinburgh. And we have students, Ayomide, which is at the Young Innes Center, and postdoctoral researchers, Jade and Michaela, that also are contributing to the Black in Plant Science. Michaela in the Young Innes Center, Jade is at Dundee. And we have someone from industry that is also a UKRI Future Leaders Fellow, John Bason, who is a REGETC. And then we have a community coordinator, Sagwede Walesombe, who is the one that is behind all our network organization, but also communications through the different platforms. Evidently, I cannot do it all. And as I say, this is going to appear several times. This is the way in which you can connect to us and share your thoughts and kind of engage with the network. So we started the network 3 years ago, and thankfully, we got some funding from the Gatsby Foundation. We initiated the network as a small team funded by the University of Leeds. So the University of Leeds gave me some research culture money, and I was able to start some activities with that, but was really the Gatsby Foundation, the one that actually put the money into the work. So they gave us £65,000, which we very much celebrated, and which are still actually surviving. So this year is the last year of this funding, and hopefully we get other funders to contribute to this cause. What we have been doing with that money. So we have been making many different engagement events, such as this one, talks, interviews, workshops, videos, but also conference. We also have published some profiles and papers, specifically raising the issues that are underpinning the work that we are doing, but also celebrating the success of other Black plant scientists in the UK. We have been able to provide funding to 4 research excellence awardees. We just celebrate their successes, and the funding has allowed them to participate and present in international conferences. We have been able to provide more than 20 travel awards throughout the whole 2 years, and 6 summer studentships with the contributions of other people, funders such as the Plant Journal and the Bioimaging UK. And we have delivered 4 training workshops. So in general, our work has been to amplify the voices and validate the work of those that are working in the UK in Black in Plant Science. We provide a sense of community and belonging, as I say, growing their self-confidence through our conferences. We provide mentorship and sponsorship. We kind of work with them on their CVs and for ECRs specifically, and carry a skill development on mentoring for those that are not Black but are mentoring Black students. We help their professional and personal growth and partner with other organizations, so basically influence them to invest in our cause. And we have been successful in gaining funding from New Phytologies, the Grow More Foundation, NASC, and the Plant Journal. This is a conference. Our first conference was celebrated in Cambridge in the Sainsbury Laboratory in 2024. And this is a picture that shows some of the attendees, most of them. It was really successful. The feedback was amazing. This is some of the post of the that we got in LinkedIn mainly. That is our main platform, um, highlighting how absolutely amazing was the kickoff of this conference and all the participants, and how they were inspired by the talks of the different the talks that were provided not only by the professors that were there, but also by the students that engaged and that were beneficiary of the summer studentships. They were amazing. And we really were very happy with this event. So we decided to organize the second one, which was last year in Leeds. And again, it was a major success. So we had more than 80 attendees, and we had to close the registration because there was no enough capacity anymore in the place that we had agreed to host the conference. We had many different workshops, and we have printed cookies and mocks, which are always helping. And we had very good support again from the different organizations mentioned here. If so, there is an article that was kind of summarizing the conference, which you can access here, but you can also check online. So following these conferences and these events, what we hope to continue doing. So we want to continue our online surveys. We will continue engaging through Blue Sky, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We continue our community networks events and also forming partnerships with external organizations. At the moment, we have a project also with FERA, Everyone is a Seed. And things like such can also enrich and spread the impact of our work. We want to continue celebrating the Research Excellence Awardees and promoting the Black researchers in the UK and cultivating the next generations through travel awards and summer studentships, workshops, and engagement activities in schools and universities. And the major opportunities that are coming up at the moment are specifically the Research Excellence Awards and the Summer Studentship Award. I invite everyone to get in touch and apply for this. So you will see in LinkedIn there is a call currently for host labs. So you can apply online, and we provide the support for undergraduate student to join the lab for 6 weeks in the summer, and some support for the running of the research. But also we invite the students afterwards to apply for these opportunities, and then we also invite them to present in our conference the research that they have been doing, which is an amazing opportunity for a second year student. We are also advertising the Research Excellence Award 2026. To apply is on Monday, the 9th of February, when the deadline closes. And the award really celebrates amazing researchers that are out there doing the work and really contributing to plant science, but that are specifically from Black heritage background. And the award will allow this researcher to present in an international conference. We receive a certificate that will honor their research, and also presentations in the Black in Plant Science conference. And the most important thing for these awardees is actually the amplification of their work that comes through the network. For many of them, they have reported that this have made a huge difference. They have been doing the same work, an excellent work, but no has been properly recognized. So by amplifying what they are doing through this Research Excellence Award, they are being able to achieve other things within their research. For example, last year, we had the research winners was Charlie Dadvar and Crispus Mevaluto. They are, again, amazing researchers. They were at the University of Nottingham and in Essex at the moment. Crispus is a beneficiary of Marie Curie Fellowship and have moved to Spain to carry out this fellowship. And Charlene has been applying and shortlisted for a BBSRC Discovery Fellowship. And this come again a lot from the confidence that they have gained as well from being themselves represented. Charlene actually wrote a beautiful article that you can add since belonging, becoming, and breaking barriers. My ICAR 2025 experience, which is the conference where we invited her and covered all her costs to participate. Last year, that was last year, the year before in 2025, the winners were Jade Blue and Bernice Weberu. And Jade, after that, has actually received other prizes, such as the Arabidosis Community Impact. This is a prize, an international prize for those early career researchers who are making a difference. And Bernice have also received prizes such as the Rising Star in African Plant Genomics. And again, we cannot say that these are directly due to the network and their selection as Research Excellence Awardee, but couldn't harm to actually see your name actually just portrayed out there and your work being reflected and being celebrated. That is what we want. Our students also have been achieving amazing things. So we had 4 students from across the country that benefited from the first round of summer studentships. Many of them, well, they were in the second year when they joined the summer studentships, and many of them have actually finished now and having opportunities, jobs in plant science, but also a master's to continue in research in plant science. And they are very grateful of the opportunities that this, or the doors that this has opened, just through engaging with the network and doing these summer studentships. These 2 ladies are our 2025 summer studentship winners, and they did a placement in London and in Bristol. And hopefully next year I can tell you what they have been doing with that experience later in life. So I just want to invite you all to go to our website. There is the work done finishing, celebrating, and giving prizes. We also kind of cover the journey of many different researchers that have been very nice to provide a profile on their journey so that they serve as role models or at least experiences that everyone can engage with. There you can also check in the category of news all the conditions and how you can apply to the Research Excellence Awards. But also, we also kind of promote a reading list where we highlight papers that are authored or co-authored by Black plant scientists. And we think that this is important because many times just we don't cite those papers, and we find that by highlighting them, you can actually, if you care, go there and check if some of the areas of research actually kind of agree with your area of research, and perhaps citing them instead of other papers that are for the from white researchers, which there is nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that many of these researchers are just not recognized. So with that, I want to almost finish, not before again putting our QR code to fill up the survey. Give us as much feedback as you can on the activities that we should promote, that we should develop. This is also the website and our Twitter account, the LinkedIn, and the email. Our coordinator, Sawidi Walsumbi, is an amazing person. She's the person behind the email. It's gonna get to her and she will respond or pass it to the whole committee. We meet every month. So I'm saying the whole committee as a whole, we meet every month to discuss opportunities, to discuss where we engage next, where we push next. And we just want to also thank our sponsors and our partners, which really, without them, many of the activities that develop couldn't be possible. And I just stopped sharing, and hopefully, this gives you a flavor of the work that we are doing in Black in Plant Science.
Thank you so much, Yoselin. That was absolutely inspiring. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So if anyone has any questions, please can they put them in the Q&A. I love what you were saying about community and belonging and the power of networking and growth of self-confidence as part of that. I think that's just so important, and it's really, really fascinating to see how you built that and grown it and are continuing to grow it there.
Yeah, I mean, I find that many people underestimate how much, how important it is to have self-confidence and sense of belonging. I have been very fortunate to come to grow up in a country in which self-confidence was one of our cultural thing. So I want that for everyone. I want that. I mean, it don't only concern Black. To be fair, Black is the place where we see that we need more, but more work to be done. But it's not only to Black. I think that in general, all of us can benefit from a bit of self-confidence.
Absolutely. But as you say, if they can see the visibility of other people like them and are supporting and empowering them, then that helps enormously with that as well. So we've got a question here from Joe. Does the representation of Black academics seem the same across other European countries? So how does the UK compare to other countries?
Thank you for the question. So I mean, I would like to answer with a pinch of salt here. There is no way that we can compare the UK to other European countries. So there is other European countries such as France, in which the representation is even worse, given that they have a high population that comes from their colonies and which are Black. I think, like in the UK, we also have a relatively high population of Black that comes from culturally from different places. But in Spain, for example, where I was, it's very unlikely that you have Black uh, people. So I was in Córdoba, and I was the only student that was Black, but not only in plant science, just basically almost in the whole city. so so it's difficult to do these comparisons, and what we would like to really engage with more researchers that are concerned in those countries so that they can actually push for their their statistics and to understand those. I can only access the statistics from the UK, but of course, there are other ways in which those countries can access statistics, such as in Netherlands, for example, there is a good population of Blacks that are, again, misrepresented. Of course, in the US, but the US is an obvious a place to mention. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, there's that power of having the data, isn't there,
Yeah.
on the numbers, which again we're just beginning to find out and explore. In the environment sector as well, there's the race report now, which looks at um, all the environmental conservation and climate change organizations are reporting their data now, and it's looking to try and close that gap and speed up diversity and inclusion in the sector. But there is a big
Mm,
gap there, and
yeah.
so it's really helpful to have that data. So we have another question here from Louise. There were so many inspiring messages in this talk. Thank you. But Yoselin has also flagged some huge challenges, for example, around the need to recruit more Black students at a time when there are fewer plant science degree courses. So that is another issue in the UK, that there's so few plant science degree courses. What can BSBI do to help?
I guess that one of the things that you can do to help is what you are doing at the moment, no? That is promoting that there are a place for these students to come to. Students, the student population is not something that is easy to access. So they come here with some kind of dreams of being, accepted, and depending of which university they go, they have their own challenges, which yeah, again, it's not easy to untangle the student sector. But I think that the problem in the case of plant science actually comes from before the university. As I say, yeah, when we're looking at plant science degree, we are looking at 0% of home students. But when we are looking at biology, it's really also very small. And so it's not only plant science that we have on the representation. And I think that the problem comes from before. So in schools, and we are looking now to year 12 and giving talks to year 12 and year 10 to start inspiring them, because they already don't feel identify to actually follow a career or a research in plant science. And many of us has been in open days trying to say, oh, I am a plant scientist, and they say, oh, I'm not interested in plants. I just want to work with the furry animal or something like that. So I think that the problem comes from before, but I think that it gets magnified during the time that they are at the university because of reading lists, providing reading lists that are representative, making an effort for creating communities that are meaningful for them. It's a challenge, but we have to cross that door if we actually want to attract people from the outside to come to plant science. And I think that yeah, talks like this, hopefully at some point I also get invited to universities, to different universities. I have done talks in many universities, but usually to researchers, but I'd say to undergrads, so that they actually kind of see themselves reflected and see and to schools, primary schools and secondary schools.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think that's all the questions we've got now. So thank you so much, Yoselin, for coming. That's really inspiring. And we would love to promote what you're doing, link in with it on social media, and just kind of keep in touch about how we can support your network, and continue to build diversity in the botanical community, because that's part of what we really want to do as well at
Yeah,
BSBI.
yeah. Thank you. I think that again, I will be really happy if this serves as a platform for more collaborations between our communities and our societies, so that we can actually build into each other, and kind of promote and amplify each other, so that we can actually, we have the same objective. So so it's logic that we can actually collaborate together. Thank
Brilliant.
you very much,
Thank you very much.
and have a good night, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.